Do you get intimidated by the tone curve and not really know how to use it? Today, I'm going to go over what this mysterious tone curve is, what it does, and why it's so powerful. Plus, I'm going to show you one tricky editing situation that the tone curve is really going to help you with. Okay, spoiler alert, it's haze. Haze is a really tricky situation sometimes. So stick with me, this is going to be really helpful. Let's go into Lightroom. So what is the tone curve and why is it so powerful? We're going to find the tone curve in the develop module. So you'll head up here, right on this side under here. The tone curve is kind of intimidating to some people and you might just skip it at first, which is a big mistake. It looks really complicated and weird though. So we have our parametric, we have a point curve, and then we have our red, green, and blue channels. And the histogram is showing up here. There's the red, green, and blue. You can kind of see those represented down here. This is going to be where your lights and your darks, over here you'll see it says shadows, darks, lights, and highlights, just like up in here, okay? So we will be adjusting these areas. In this parametric curve, you can just drag, but you can't set anything different. In here, we have the point curve. You can actually make points and adjust those points and they will stick. So we can move the actual black points, the white points, anything. I like to set the points first and then do some adjustments right here. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use it by itself, essentially. I might do a little exposure adjustment and maybe a white balance, but I'm not going to use like all of these. I'm going to just use the tone curve. And so you can see how powerful it is. Then you can decide how to integrate it into your own editing process. Before we talk about this first mistake photographers make when using the tone curve, I will tell you that it is sort of basic knowledge that you quote unquote should be using an S curve. I'm going to set these points right here. And then when we do an S curve, we're essentially making this like sideways S right here like this. So it takes the raw files, which are usually more flat. It has more data in that file. And so it looks really neutral when you get it straight out of camera. It essentially is just boosting some highlights and darks levels. This image is a little bright to start with, so I would decrease that. I should have done that first. The first mistake often is when you use the traditional S curve like this, just as it is, and then boom, you're done. Okay, we're not adjusting for the subjects. And so oftentimes the skin tones are falling in this middle range. And when you leave it right here, you're doing a bit of a disservice to the skin tones because usually we like to lift those skin tones a little bit. If I switched it and I pulled these midtones to be a little bit lighter, and then I went with sort of this like distorted S curve a little bit. It kind of brightens up those midtones, which is a lot more flattering. The shadows like under her chin, they get a little bit harsher when you're just doing this regular S curve. Then when we keep those skin tones a little brighter, it kind of softens that up. Let me show you an example on this photo. I think I'm going to just adjust the exposure. If we go ahead and we set that midpoint right in the middle, like they say, and then we do the little S curve, it's a little more obvious in this photo, but we're almost kind of making this a little too muddy and contrasty. And then we've got these highlights on her face. So let's change that to be a little bit brighter in the midtone levels. Pull this down a little bit. But this looks so much nicer to me than this one right here. Look how much it softened up her face. You can use this additional curves to kind of make slight adjustments. You're not going to be able to change down here and up here at all. But we can make little changes throughout in the highlights, lights, darks, and shadows sections. So when we went back to this, see, we're even boosting it a little bit more, depending on, what your style is and what you like. This next mistake refers to the RGB channels right here. Sometimes people will mess around with these channels too much. So what you're doing is adding color, like a filter, So you got to be careful messing with the colors too much. Generally, I probably don't mess with them much. We pulled this down, kind of kept those midtones up. Okay, there's like a quick little curves adjustment. Now, say we head into these color channels, going to set this mid point so that I can adjust them separately. We are adding, you can immediately see, so like the tiniest adjustments, we are adding color. We'll go ahead and add this like slight curve to each color channel. That way we can keep it a little bit more balanced. So that would be like a basic start. You can see how it just makes a slight adjustment. But stylistically, if you want to start messing around with some things a little bit more, like you want more yellows in your highlights, or you want some more pinks or something, or you want the blues to not be so blue and you want to add yellow to those shadows. So you can see where it could get out of control if you mess with it too much. I would say the biggest problem with adjusting these too much is you're going to possibly fall into the trendy category. So I just wanted to explain really quick why following trends is something you should maybe do, maybe not do. It depends. My wedding was in the time when they were kind of transitioning from film to digital and all this new technology was coming out. Like my first digital camera was pretty terrible. So at that time, people were playing around. They thought everything was really cool. There was lots of spotlight colors and really saturated, crazy shifting of colors, like just insane. All this really fun, artsy kind of stuff that I look back and I'm like, ah! But I mean, it was trends of the time, so whatever. But when you're a wedding photographer, taking photos that are timeless and lasting is really important. So I'm kind of sad and bummed out that my wedding photos had to be in that time when everybody was just following these trends, because they are not timeless and it's like something I can't replace. It's easier to experiment and have fun with, commercial or maybe even portraits. But when it's weddings, like, just keep that in mind. You want your clients to love their photos in 45 years. So the little mistake is, at least, I mean, maybe it's not necessarily a mistake, but not knowing about this tool right here called the targeting tool. You will also find that down in here. So if you've ever used it down in here, you'll be familiar, but you can use it also in the tone curves, and you can use it in any curve. So what you'll do is you'll click on this and say you don't know necessarily where the levels fall of something that you're looking at. When I hover over this, you'll see the point move on here. So I'm going to go like this. If I don't know where this falls just by looking at it, using the targeting tool is going to show me. So you can literally make adjustments just with a click and a drag. So for this one, we click and then we can drag up or down. So let's pull that up, shall we? And then let's come up here and we're going to pull that down. That's like a highlight. Super highlight, super highlight. Okay, let's kind of get a middle level. And I am completely eyeballing this. When I click on her skin, see where the levels are? They're right in that mid area. So that's why I want to make sure that that's up. Okay, and then we've got some darks like right here probably. And we can pull those down. See how you can just click and drag? It's pretty cool. I think we pulled highlights a little too much, so I will fix that. So just like a quick, simple edit, but look how powerful that is. It's pretty cool. And now the lighting situation that you need curves on is haze. I'm just going to adjust exposure a touch, And I'm going to fix white balance just a little bit, which sometimes it's hard to see with the haze, so we can adjust it after, but just a quick change. Okay, so we're going to start there. Now up here, you can see it's full on hazy because there is nothing in this blacks and shadows. So what I'm going to do first is just do a quick edit with this basic panel only. We're going to try to pull like some blacks in. And also we are always looking at histogram just to double check things. Okay. So I'm going to pull, now if we go like this, we can see we did lose data in the veil. So it's not completely savable, that part, which it's okay. We'll be fine. Okay, let me just make a little adjustment where we can. Without messing with colors, like I would definitely want to mess with some colors going on, like in the grass, but just as far as the lighting, you can see how it's not the easiest. That's kind of like a simple how we would get with basic. Now, I'm going to reset that. I'm going to pull that back down a little bit, exposure, a little bit of warmth, just as a starting point. Okay, now let's go do tone curves only. So for this, we definitely want to start with the point curve. You know how I mentioned I like doing that first? It's because for this situation, we need to change those blacks drastically. So we're just going to keep it down here until we get the darks in this region right here. And you'll see this one adjusts, but this one is still, like this is just what the original image is. So you can see how you just pull it up right until that spot. And now you have like a new curve. It's almost like you chopped this off. Now we have a starting point down here, and we're going to create our own little curves adjustment, keeping those mids. So just think of this as like a squashed, a squashed down square. Okay, so we'll kind of start with that. I'm going to pull this whites point down just a little bit. Now you can see with my develop module, I have this changed to white. I always suggest that because now we can see exactly what is blown out and what is not. And I usually like, stylistically, I like to save highlights just a little bit so that they're not completely white. We can adjust this a little more later if we need to. Let's pull into here really quick and maybe lift these a little more. So these are the adjustments that we made from just the basic. And then these ones we've done from the tone curve. It's like a nicer pop, sort of. I almost need to go fix that. Lens correction. It's bugging me. I had like a dark corner down here that was bugging me. Okay. So we have this compared to where we had the other one. So you can see how it's still kind of hazy up here, right? This is so much nicer. We can get so much more detailed into where we are focusing lights and darks on. So let's just do a few little adjustments in this RGB for fun. Let's kind of see if we can get that grass looking a little better without going into the HSL panel. Let's pull this down a little bit. We're in the red channel. Let's go a little bit more cyan in the shadows. And I don't want to go too much because it looks kind of weird. So maybe just like a little bit pinkiness. Head into the green channel. I'm going to set that mid so that it doesn't change. I think maybe keeping this kind of right there. Now if I go up and down, you can see what happens. You almost want to go up just a smidgen. And then let's go in here. Let's kind of bring this maybe a little cooler. Kind of make those highlights a little more warm. Okay, let's see how much we changed. Go back here. So this is without doing any adjustments. And then we just did some minor adjustments that made some color shift to his suit. The grass became less reddish, and it's just like a little minor adjustment. The skin got a little more color. So remember, you're adding color when you are using this RGB tone curves. Okay, so let's just go look. We have before, we have a basic adjustment, then we reset it. We added our curves adjustment instead, and then we added a little color. Pretty awesome, right? And it's way more targeted than just using the basic panel. So now, do you feel like every photo probably needs a tone curve adjustment? Sometimes presets have them built in, so you don't necessarily have to make adjustments. But if you find yourself using a similar tone curve adjustment often, then go ahead and make a preset for it that is like haze or whatever. And then what you're going to do is just check your tone curves. Okay. Then when you save that, you'll be able to go click on this preset if I have a hazy photo. Boom. It's going to be so helpful. So that's your last little quick tip, is to make presets sometimes if you want to continue using those adjustments. Let me know if this tutorial was helpful in the comments below and by hitting that like button. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time.